Do you struggle to eat regularly because you don't have an appetite, or you notice that you're not really hungry for hours on end and then all of a sudden 0 to 100 you are ravenously hungry, in pain, super nauseous? I am a dietitian. My name's Mel and I work at Active Health Clinic, and I'm going to talk a bit today about why eating regularly is important for anyone, but also especially for those with invisible illness. So basically, I'm going to start with a metaphor, and I want you to think about tending to a fire. So we have our logs and our kindling down below, and we have our fire burning nice and big, nice and bright. And I want you to picture that there is a rope at the top, and basically we want to aim to burn through that rope. So if we picture our fire and we picture it's burning up at the rope, we know that when we're tending to a fire that eventually that fire starts to drop as it starts to burn through the kindling. And so I like to ask people, if tending to a fire, would you wait until the fire drops all the way down to the bottom, to the logs, until it's just a little spark to kind of top up some more kindling, or would you start to do it as the fire drops? And look, I've never been really good at tending to a fire, but I do know, and I know a lot of people that I ask this to would go, absolutely, you'd start to add in more fuel, more energy for the fire to burn through as it starts to drop. And I like to relate this to us, our energy and our appetite. Because if we are waiting until we burn through all of our energy until we reach the bottom, it is much harder, and we need to put in a lot of food, a lot of kindling to try and spark that fire back up again, to try and get our energy back up where it needs to be, if we let it drop all the way down to the bottom. And for people with invisible illness, this can be hard. For those of us living with POTS, it can be challenging to eat larger portions of food at one time. That's why we kind of recommend those smaller, more frequent meals, but that's really hard if you don't have an appetite. And so this is where I like to bring physiology into things, basically, and we've done other videos on this on our YouTube, but basically, give or take, depending on the person, depending on how much you eat, the nutritional density of what you eat, but also just who you are, any random given day, what you're doing, many different factors. It can take roughly 2.5 to maybe 4 hours from when we eat to when we get hungry again. And that's because there's actually this physiological, mechanism where our food reaches a certain point in digestion, and that triggers our hunger hormone, ghrelin, to be released and to tell our body that we are hungry. It can just be really challenging for us to tune into those signs of hunger for many different reasons. Some of us with invisible illness are more likely and more predisposed to having lower interoception or interoceptive awareness to be able to tune in and recognize that certain signs going on in our body mean hunger, mean that we should feed ourselves. It can also just be really hard that when we're experiencing so many other signs and symptoms with invisible illnesses, migraines, drop in energy, headaches, fatigue, shakiness, those can all be signs of hunger that we might mistake for just living and being confused with our presentation of symptoms. So it can be really hard to regularly keep on top of eating if we are solely relying on what's going on inside our bodies. So basically, I think the first step in supporting your appetite is just understanding why it is important that we need to feed ourselves regularly, and that we basically need to imagine our little fire burning and that we need to top it up across the day, even if we don't notice when it's starting to drop and we don't get those signs of when it is starting to drop to replenish it. And we only get those signs right at the bottom when we're a 10 out of 10 ravenously hungry. So it might be something to connect with, because I get a lot of people ask, why is it so important to eat regularly, especially if I'm not hungry? And so basically we want to prevent our fire dropping super low, having that feel super ravenous, and we're more likely to eat to a point of feeling unwell if we are that hungry. It's not necessarily eating less, it's actually eating more and eating more consistently to support our body and our energy levels across the day. I'm going to leave this video here, but you might be thinking, okay, cool, but how do I remind myself if I don't actually feel hungry? If I don't get signs of hunger, how can I tell when the right time is to eat? And especially because there's such that wide variety and that fluctuation of 2.5 to 4 hours. So I'm going to create another video on some tips to help with some gentle reminders to fuel your body. So go ahead and watch that when it is released. But yeah, if you resonated with this, comment down below. If you liked this metaphor, let us know. Or if you feel like you have a better metaphor, something that helps you resonate with why and the importance of eating regularly and consistently, please comment it down below. You might help someone else out. Hope that helped, and thank you for watching.